At his graduation party, my boyfriend stood on a table, tapped his glass, and said, "I want to thank everyone, except her." She held me back. She's dead weight. People laughed. I didn't. I just grabbed my bag and walked out. 72 hours later, he DM'd me. "Please come see me. I need you." She left. I never imagined I'd be the kind of person who'd find herself in a situation like this. I mean, who does? Standing there, surrounded by his friends and family, I felt the ground shift beneath me. It was like the universe had played a cruel joke, and I was the punchline. But in that moment, the only thing I could think to do was leave, so I did. The walk home was a blur. I remember the cool night air brushing against my skin, the way the streetlights flickered as if they were mocking me. My phone buzzed a few times. Messages from friends who were at the party, probably trying to console me, or maybe just get the inside scoop. I didn't have the energy to check. I just needed to get away, to be somewhere that didn't remind me of him. When I got home, I threw my bag onto the couch and collapsed into bed, still wearing the dress I'd picked out so carefully that morning. Sleep didn't come easy. My mind kept replaying his words, the laughter, the way he looked at me as if I was a stranger. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out when things had gone so wrong. We'd been together for 3 years. 3 years of late-night talks, shared dreams, and plans for a future that now seemed like a distant memory. Sure, we had our ups and downs. What couple doesn't? But I thought we were solid. I thought we understood each other. Clearly, I was wrong. The next day was a haze of coffee and unanswered questions. I avoided social media, knowing it would be filled with photos and posts from the party. Instead, I focused on mundane tasks. Laundry, dishes, anything to keep my mind occupied. But even as I scrubbed and folded, his words echoed in my head. By the time his message came through, I was numb. "Please come see me. I need you." She left. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Who was she? And why did he think I'd drop everything to rush to his side after what he'd said? But curiosity got the better of me. Against my better judgment, I found myself standing outside his apartment, my heart a mix of anger and confusion. I knocked, and when he opened the door, he looked different. The confident, self-assured guy I knew was gone, replaced by someone who looked lost. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I stepped inside, the familiar scent of his cologne mingling with something else, something desperate. We sat in silence for a moment, the air thick with tension. "Who's she?" I finally asked, my voice sharper than I intended. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Jessica, we were seeing each other." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I should have been angry, furious even, but all I felt was a deep, aching sadness. "Why?" was all I could manage. "I don't know," he said, his eyes pleading. "It just happened, but she's gone now, and I realized I made a mistake." I wanted to scream, to tell him that I wasn't some backup plan he could fall back on, but instead I just sat there, trying to make sense of it all. How could someone I thought I knew so well turn out to be a stranger? "I need you," he said again, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away, the touch too painful. "I need time," I replied, standing up. "I need to figure out what I want." As I walked out of his apartment, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with the heartbreak. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in days, I felt like I was taking a step toward finding out. Back in the safety of my apartment, I finally checked my phone. Messages from friends, missed calls from my mom, all waiting for an explanation I wasn't ready to give. But one message stood out, from my best friend Mia. "I'm here when you're ready to talk." I smiled, grateful for the one constant in my life. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew I wouldn't be facing it alone. And for now, that was enough. The moment I put my phone down, I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. It wasn't just physical. It was the kind of tired that seeped into your bones, leaving you heavy and hollow. I knew I needed to talk to Mia, but not yet. Not until I could sort through the mess of emotions tangled inside me. I wandered into the kitchen, hoping a cup of tea might soothe my nerves. As I waited for the water to boil, my mind drifted back to the conversation with him. His plea echoed in my head, "I need you." The words felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. How could he expect me to be there for him after everything? The kettle whistled, snapping me back to the present. I poured the hot water over the tea bag, watching as the dark tendrils unfurled, swirling into the clear water. It was mesmerizing in a way, how something so simple could be so calming. I took a deep breath, letting the steam envelop me like a warm embrace. As I settled onto the couch, my phone buzzed again. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. It was Mia again. This time, her message was more direct. "I'm coming over. You need company." I couldn't help but smile. Mia always knew when I needed her, even if I didn't. I quickly typed back, "Doors open?" and set the phone down. The thought of seeing her brought a sense of comfort I hadn't realized I was missing. While I waited, I let my mind wander, back to the party. His words, the way he'd looked at me, like I was nothing, played on a loop. I kept trying to pinpoint the exact moment things had changed between us, but it was like trying to catch smoke with my bare hands. The knock on the door was soft, almost tentative. "It's open," I called, not moving from my spot. Mia let herself in, her presence filling the room with an energy I desperately needed. "Hey," she said, her voice gentle as she sat beside me. "How are you holding up?" I shrugged, taking a sip of my tea. "I don't know, honestly. It's all just a lot." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. I saw the photos from the party. It looked brutal. It was, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I just don't get it, Mia. How could he do that? How could he just throw everything away like it meant nothing? Mia sighed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Some people are just selfish, you know? They don't realize what they have until it's gone. I leaned back, closing my eyes. I just feel like I wasted so much time. 3 years, Mia. And for what? For you, she said softly. You grew. You learned. You loved. And that's never a waste. Her words were like a balm, soothing the raw edges of my heart. We sat in silence for a while, the quiet punctuated by the occasional clink of my mug against the table. It was nice, just being with someone who didn't need me to explain, who simply understood. Eventually, Mia spoke again. So, what's next? Are you going to talk to him? The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. I thought about it, really thought about it. I don't know. Part of me wants to, but another part just wants to move on. I'm not sure if I can forgive him. Forgiveness isn't for him, Mia reminded me. It's for you. To let go of the anger, the hurt. I nodded, knowing she was right, but it was easier said than done. I just need some time. Mia smiled, squeezing my hand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here no matter what. Her words wrapped around me like a safety net, catching me when I felt like I was falling. We spent the rest of the evening talking about everything and nothing, letting the conversation meander wherever it pleased. It was exactly what I needed. As the night wore on and Mia eventually left, I found myself feeling lighter, as if a small part of the burden had been lifted. I knew I wasn't okay, not yet, but I was on my way, and that was something. Just as I was about to head to bed, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was an unknown number. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the screen. Curiosity won out, and I opened the message. I'm sorry for everything. Can we talk? Please. My heart skipped a beat. It was from him. I stared at the message, my mind racing. What could he possibly say that he hadn't already? And yet, a part of me wanted to know, wanted to hear him out. I took a deep breath, the decision looming large. Whatever I chose, I knew it would change everything. But for now, I turned off my phone and slipped under the covers, letting the darkness embrace me. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow, I'll decide. The morning light crept through the curtains, casting soft shadows across the room. I lay there, cocooned in the warmth of my blankets, trying to hold on to the fleeting peace of sleep. But reality was relentless, tugging at the edges of my consciousness, reminding me of the decision that awaited. I turned my head, squinting at the clock. It was still early, too early to face the world, but the weight of the message from last night pressed down on me. I'm sorry for everything. Can we talk? Please. The words echoed in my mind, each syllable a reminder of the tangled web of emotions I'd been trying to unravel. With a groan, I reached for my phone, hesitating for a moment before unlocking it. I half expected another message from him, something that might tip the scales in one direction or the other, but the screen was blank. My heart sank. A part of me disappointed, another part relieved. I tossed the phone onto the pillow beside me and stared at the ceiling, my thoughts a chaotic jumble. What was I supposed to do? I knew what Mia would say, that I needed to think about what was best for me, but that was easier said than done. The problem was I didn't even know what I wanted anymore. The sound of my stomach growling broke the silence, a reminder that I hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. I dragged myself out of bed, shuffling to the kitchen where I half-heartedly prepared a bowl of cereal. As I ate, my mind wandered back to the last few days, to the party, to his words, to the way my world had shifted in an instant. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, one wrong step away from tumbling into the unknown. The thought was terrifying, but there was also a strange sense of exhilaration in the uncertainty. Maybe this was an opportunity, a chance to redefine what I wanted from my life, from my relationships. But first, I had to deal with him. I had to decide whether to meet him, to hear what he had to say. The idea filled me with dread, but there was a small, stubborn part of me that needed closure, that needed to understand why he had done what he did. I washed my bowl, the repetitive motion calming in its simplicity. When I was done, I stood there for a moment, staring out the window at the world beyond. The street was quiet, the kind of stillness that only existed in the early hours of a Saturday morning. It felt like the calm before a storm, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something that would change everything. With a sigh, I turned away from the window, grabbing my phone once more. I scrolled through my contacts until I found his name, my thumb hovering over the call button. My heart raced, a mix of fear and anticipation thrumming through my veins. I knew that whatever happened next, it would be a turning point, a moment that would define the path forward. Before I could second-guess myself, I tapped the screen, pressing the phone to my ear. Each ring felt like an eternity, the sound echoing in the quiet of my apartment. Just as I was about to hang up, his voice crackled through the line, tentative and unsure. Hello? I swallowed hard, my voice catching in my throat. It's me, I said, the words feeling strange and unfamiliar. I got your message. There was a pause, a beat of silence that stretched between us. Thanks for calling, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know if you would. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I wasn't sure either, I admitted, my honesty surprising even me. But I think we need to talk. He let out a breath, relief evident in his tone. Yeah, I think so too. Can we meet? I hesitated, the question hanging in the air. Okay, I said finally, the word feeling like a commitment, a promise to face whatever lay ahead. But not at your place, somewhere neutral. Of course, he agreed quickly, as if afraid I might change my mind. There's a cafe on 3rd Street. Do you know it? I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Yeah, I know it. What, time? Is noon okay? I glanced at the clock, calculating how much time I had to prepare myself. Noon is fine, thank you, he said, the sincerity in his voice catching me off guard. I'll see you then. We hung up, the silence. In the apartment feeling different now, charged with a new energy. I set the phone down, my mind racing with possibilities, with what-ifs and maybes. But beneath it all was a sense of determination, a resolve to face this head-on, to find the answers I needed. I spent the next few hours trying to distract myself, tidying up the apartment, flipping through old magazines, anything to keep my mind from spiraling. But as the clock ticked closer to noon, the knot in my stomach tightened, the anticipation building with each passing minute. Finally, it was time. I grabbed my coat, slipping it on as I headed for the door. As I stepped outside, the cool air hit my face, a reminder that the world was still turning, that life was moving forward even if I felt stuck in place. The walk to the cafe was short, but it felt longer with each step. My mind raced with questions, with doubts, with hopes I was too afraid to acknowledge. But as I approached the door, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever was to come. I pushed the door open, the bell above it chiming softly. The cafe was warm, the scent of coffee and baked goods wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. I spotted him immediately, sitting at a table by the window, his eyes scanning the room. Our eyes met, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. I took another breath, my heart pounding in my chest as I made my way over to him. This was it, the moment I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. As I sat down across from him, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and hope, I knew that whatever happened next would change everything. But for the first time, I felt ready to face it, ready to find out what the future held. I sat across from him, the cafe bustling around us, but it felt like we were in a bubble, isolated from the world. The sun streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on the table between us. He looked different, older somehow, like he'd aged years in the days since the party. His hair was disheveled, and there were dark circles under his eyes, as if sleep had been as elusive for him as it had been for me. Thanks for meeting. Me, he said, his voice low and tentative. There was a vulnerability in his eyes that I hadn't seen before, a crack in the facade of the confident guy I thought I knew. I nodded, wrapping my hands around the warm mug in front of me, the heat seeping into my palms. I almost didn't, I admitted, the words coming out more bluntly than I'd intended. I wasn't sure what you could possibly say after everything. He flinched, and for a moment I felt a pang of guilt. But then I reminded myself of what he'd done, of the humiliation and betrayal. I had every right to be angry. I deserve that, he said, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. I messed up, I know I did, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't change what happened, I replied, my voice steady, even though my heart was anything but. Sorry doesn't erase the things you said, the way you made me feel. He nodded, his gaze dropping to the table. I know, I wanted to explain, if you'll let me. I hesitated, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to get up and leave, to walk away from the mess and never look back. But another part needed to know, needed to understand why he'd hurt me so deeply. Okay, I said finally, leaning back in my chair. Explain. He took a deep breath as if gathering his thoughts. She was a mistake, he began, his voice barely audible over the chatter of the cafe. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. And I know that sounds like a cop-out, but it's the truth. I watched him, searching for any hint of deceit, but all I saw was regret, raw and unfiltered. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice softer now, the anger giving way to the hurt beneath. I was scared, he admitted, his eyes meeting mine. Scared of losing you, scared of what you'd think of me. I thought if I ignored it, maybe it would just go away. I shook my head, disbelief mingling with the sadness. That's not how it works. You can't just pretend things didn't happen. I know, he said, his voice cracking. I know that now. But at the time, I was just lost. And then at the party, I don't know what came over me. It was like I was watching myself from the outside, and I couldn't stop. His confession hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Didn't know what to say, how to process the jumble of emotions swirling inside me. Part of me wanted to forgive him, to believe that he was genuinely sorry. But another part of me, the part that had been hurt so deeply, wasn't sure if I could. I don't know if I can trust you again, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. You broke something, and I don't know if it can be fixed. He reached across the table, his hand hovering near mine, but not touching. I know it'll take time, he said, his eyes pleading, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I need you to know that I never stopped caring about you. His words pierced through the wall I'd built around my heart, and for a moment, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. But then I remembered Mia's words. The reminder that forgiveness wasn't just about him, it was about me too. I need time, I said, echoing the words I'd spoken before. Time to figure out what I want, what I need. He nodded, his expression a mix of relief and resignation. I understand. I'll give you all the time you need. We sat there in silence, the weight of everything left unsaid hanging between us. And then slowly, I stood up, my decision made. I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk again, I said, my voice steady, even as my heart raced. He nodded, standing as well. Thank you for listening, for giving me a chance to explain. I managed a small smile, one that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Take care of yourself," I said, turning to leave. As I walked out of the cafe, the bell chiming softly behind me, I felt a strange sense of calm. I didn't know what the future held, whether I could forgive him, whether we could rebuild what had been broken. But for the first time, I felt like I was in control, like I was the one deciding the path forward. The sun was warm on my face as I stepped onto the street, and I took a deep breath, letting the fresh air fill my lungs. It was a new beginning, a chance to redefine what I wanted, who I wanted to be, and for now that was enough. As I walked, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, half expecting another message from him, but it was Mia. "How did it go?" she texted, her concern evident even through the screen. I smiled, my heart swelling with gratitude for the friend who'd been my anchor through it all. "It went," I replied simply, knowing she'd understand the weight of those words. And as I tucked my phone away, I felt a sense of hope, fragile, but growing. Whatever happened next, I knew I wasn't alone, and that was the best feeling of all. The cafe was still bustling when I left, the door closing softly behind me as I stepped into the afternoon sun. The warmth felt good on my skin, a gentle reminder that the world was still spinning, life carrying on despite the turmoil inside me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the swirl of emotions that meeting had stirred up. I couldn't shake the image of him, sitting there with that look of regret etched into his features. It was like seeing a ghost of the person I once knew, the person I thought I loved. And yet, there was a flicker of something else, something that hinted at the possibility of change, of growth. But was that enough? The walk home was a blur, my feet moving on autopilot while my mind replayed our conversation over and over. His words echoed in my head, each one like a pebble dropped into a pond, sending ripples through the carefully constructed walls I'd built around my heart. I wanted to believe him, to believe that he was truly sorry, but trust was a fragile thing, easily shattered and not so easily repaired. Back in the safety of my apartment, I kicked off my shoes and sank onto the couch, exhaustion settling over me like a heavy blanket. I needed to talk to Mia, to hear her voice and get her perspective. She always had a way of cutting through the noise, of helping me see things clearly when everything felt muddled. I grabbed my phone and dialed her number, listening to the familiar ring, each one a reminder of the friendship that had been my lifeline these past few days. She picked up on the third ring, her voice warm and comforting. "Hey you," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "How did it go?" I let out a shaky breath, trying to find the words. "It was intense," I admitted, closing my eyes as I leaned back against the cushions. He apologized, said he was scared and lost, that he never stopped caring about me. Mia was quiet for a moment, processing. "Do you believe him?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Part of me wants to, but another part is just so angry and hurt. I don't know if I can trust him again." Her sigh was soft, empathetic. "It's okay to feel that way. You don't have to make any decisions right now. Just give yourself time to heal, to figure out what you really want." "I know," I said, grateful for her patience, her unwavering support. "I just wish it was easier, you know? That there was some kind of roadmap for this." Mia laughed gently. "If only. But you're strong, and whatever you decide, I'll be here." Her words were a balm, soothing the raw edges of my heart. We talked for a while longer, about everything and nothing, until I felt a little lighter, a little more grounded. After we hung up, I sat there for a moment, letting the quiet of the apartment settle around me. My mind drifted back to the party, to the laughter that had felt like knives, to the way he'd looked at me like I was a stranger. It was hard to reconcile that with the man I'd seen today, the one who seemed genuinely remorseful. But then I thought about Jessica, about the betrayal that still stung like an open wound. Could I really forgive him? Could I move past this and rebuild what we'd lost? The questions swirled in my mind, each one more daunting than the last. I needed a distraction, something to pull me out of my head. I glanced around the room, my eyes landing on the stack of books I'd been meaning to read. I picked one up, flipping through the pages, trying to lose myself in someone else's story for a while, but the words blurred together, my mind unable to focus. Frustrated, I set the book aside and stood up, pacing the small space of my living room. I felt restless, like there was something just out of reach, something I needed to grasp but couldn't quite see. And then my phone buzzed, the sound sharp in the quiet room. I grabbed it, my heart skipping a beat at the sight of an unknown number. For a moment, I hesitated, my finger hovering over the screen, but curiosity won out, and I opened the message. "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but there's something you need to know. Meet me at the park. It's important." My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of dread and intrigue coursing through me. Who could it be? And what could they possibly have to say that was so urgent? I glanced at the clock, calculating how much time I had before the sunset. The park wasn't far, just a short walk away, but the thought of venturing out again, of facing yet another confrontation, was daunting. But something in the message, in the urgency of the words, compelled me to go. I grabbed my coat, slipping it on as I headed for the door, my mind racing with possibilities. As I stepped outside, the cool evening air wrapped around me, invigorating and sobering all at once. I made my way down the street, each step a reminder of the uncertainty that lay ahead. The park was quiet, the shadows long and the air crisp with the promise of night. I scanned the area, looking for any sign of the person who'd sent the message. My heart raced, each beat echoing in the stillness. And then I saw her, standing by the fountain, her silhouette familiar and yet unexpected. It was Jessica. My breath caught in my throat, a mix of anger and curiosity warring within me. What could she possibly have to say, and why now? I approached, cautiously, my mind a whirlwind of questions and emotions. She turned as I drew near, her expression unreadable in the dim light. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice soft, almost hesitant. I crossed my arms, trying to project more confidence than I felt. "What do you want, Jessica?" She took a deep breath, her gaze steady on mine. "I know you have no reason to trust me, but there's something you need to know. Something about him." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I didn't know what to expect, but the sense of foreboding was undeniable. Whatever she had to say, I knew it would change everything. I stood there, the cool evening air wrapping around me as I faced Jessica. Her presence was a stark reminder of everything that had gone wrong, and yet, here she was, claiming to have something important to tell me about him. My mind raced with possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. She hesitated, glancing around as if making sure we were truly alone. "It's about the party," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's something you don't know, something he didn't tell you." I crossed my arms tighter, a defense against the chill creeping up my spine. "What are you talking about?" Jessica took a deep breath, her eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made me uneasy. "He didn't plan to say those things about you. It wasn't his idea." I frowned, confusion mingling with the anger simmering beneath the surface. Then whose idea was it? She shifted her weight, biting her lip as if weighing her next words carefully. "It was his friends. They convinced him it would be funny, that it would make him look good in front of everyone." My heart twisted at the thought, the betrayal cutting deeper than I'd expected. "And he just went along with it?" Jessica nodded, regret etched into her features. "He was drunk, and they were egging him on. I'm not excusing what he did, but I thought you should know. It wasn't entirely him." I turned away, trying to process what she was telling me. It didn't absolve him of his actions, didn't erase the hurt he'd caused, but it added a layer of complexity I hadn't anticipated. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the sound of the fountain. "Because you deserve to know the truth," she replied, her tone earnest. "And because I feel guilty. I was part of it too." Her admission hit me like a punch to the gut, the weight of it settling heavily on my shoulders. I didn't know what to say, how to respond to the tangled web of deceit and regret she was laying bare before me. "Why now?" I asked, my voice tinged with disbelief. "Why tell me this now after everything?" Jessica looked down, her expression one of shame. "Because I've seen what it's done to him, how much he regrets it, and because I wanted to make things right. At least a little." I let out a shaky breath, the anger giving way to a deep, aching sadness. It was all so much, too much to process in the dim light of the park. I needed time, space to sort through the mess of emotions roiling inside me. "Thank you for telling me," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I need to think about all of this." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "I get it, and I'm sorry for everything." I managed a small nod, not trusting myself to speak. As Jessica turned to leave, I stood there, the weight of her revelations pressing down on me like a physical force. The walk home was a blur, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts, none of them settling long enough for me to grasp. I felt like I was caught in a storm, tossed about by the winds of betrayal and regret, unsure of which way was up. Back in the safety of my apartment, I sank onto the couch, the exhaustion of the day crashing over me like a wave. I needed to talk to Mia, to hear her voice and gain some clarity amidst the chaos. I picked up my phone, dialing her number with trembling fingers. She answered on the second ring, her voice a lifeline in the darkness. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, concern lacing her words. I let out a shaky breath, trying to find the words. "I just met with Jessica," I said, the admission feeling surreal even as I spoke it. "What? Why?" Mia's surprise was palpable, and I could picture her sitting up straighter, her attention fully on me. "She had something to tell me about him, about the party," I explained, recounting Jessica's revelations in a rush of words. "She said it wasn't his idea, that his friends convinced him to do it." Mia was silent for a moment, processing. "Wow, that's a lot." "Yeah," I agreed, running a hand through my hair in frustration. "I don't know what to think, Mia. It doesn't change what he did, but it complicates everything." "It does," she said gently. "But remember, you don't have to figure it all out right now. Take your time. Let yourself feel whatever you need to feel." Her words were a balm, soothing the raw edges of my heart. We talked for a while longer, her steady presence grounding me amidst the chaos. After we hung up, I sat there for a moment, letting the quiet of the apartment settle around me. My mind drifted back to the park, to Jessica's words, to the way everything seemed to shift and change with each new revelation. I didn't know what the future held, whether I could forgive him, whether we could rebuild what had been broken, but for the first time I felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward. And as I lay back on the couch, staring up at the ceiling, I knew that whatever happened next, I would face it head-on, with courage and determination, because in the end, that was all I could do. The buzz of my phone pulled me from my thoughts, the screen lighting up with a new message. My heart skipped a beat, anticipation and dread mingling in my chest as I reached for it. It was from him. "I heard you met with Jessica. Can we talk? I need to explain." I stared at the message, the words blurring together as my mind raced, with possibilities. Whatever he had to say, I knew it would change everything. But for now, I set the phone aside, letting the uncertainty linger. Tomorrow, I thought, tomorrow I'll decide. I sat on the edge of my bed, the events of the past few days swirling in my mind like a storm I couldn't escape. Jessica's words lingered, adding a new layer of complexity to everything I thought I knew. It was hard to reconcile the image of him as a puppet, manipulated by his friends, with the person who had so carelessly hurt me, yet somehow it made a twisted kind of sense. I picked up my phone, staring at his message. I heard you met with Jessica. Can we talk? I need to explain. The words seemed to pulse on the screen, demanding my attention, my decision. But what was there left to explain? And did I even want to hear it? I took a deep breath, trying to clear my head. The truth was, I didn't know what I wanted. My heart was a tangled mess of hurt and hope, anger and longing. I stood up, pacing the room as if movement might somehow untangle the knots inside me. Mia's voice echoed in my mind, her advice to take my time, to feel whatever I needed to feel. She was right, of course. I didn't have to rush into anything. But the uncertainty gnawed at me, a constant reminder that something needed to be resolved. I grabbed my jacket and headed out the door, the need for fresh air overwhelming. The streets were quiet, the world around me painted in the soft hues of evening. I walked aimlessly, letting my feet guide me while my mind wandered. Eventually, I found myself at the park, the same place where Jessica had dropped her bombshell. I sat on a bench, the cool metal biting through my jeans, and watched the world go by. A couple strolled past, their laughter a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I envied their ease, their uncomplicated happiness. I closed my eyes, trying to imagine a world where things were simple again. But the truth was, things had been unraveling long before the party. Maybe I just hadn't wanted to see it. Maybe I'd been clinging to an idea of us that no longer existed. With a sigh, I pulled out my phone, scrolling through old photos of us. There we were, smiling and carefree, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. I lingered on one picture, taken on a trip to the coast. We looked so happy, so in love. But now, it felt like a different lifetime. The phone buzzed in my hand, pulling me back to the present. Another message from him. I'll be at the cafe if you change your mind. I just want to talk. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. It was tempting. The idea of meeting him, of finally getting answers. But was I ready for that? Could I face him and not crumble under the weight of everything that had happened? I stood up, the decision settling in my bones. I needed to do this. For me, not for him, not for us, but for the person I was becoming. The person who deserved closure, who deserved to move forward without the shadows of the past clinging to her. The walk to the cafe felt different this time. Each step a reminder that I was choosing this, choosing to face the uncertainty head on. As I approached, I could see him through the window, sitting at the same table as before. His posture was tense, his eyes scanning the room like he was searching for something, or someone. I hesitated at the door, taking a deep breath before stepping inside. The bell chimed softly, announcing my arrival. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine with a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Thank you for coming," he said as I sat down, his voice earnest, a little broken. I nodded, wrapping my hands around a mug of coffee he'd ordered for me. "I almost didn't," I admitted, the honesty surprising even me. "I know," he replied, his gaze steady, unwavering. "But I'm glad you did. I need to tell you everything." I listened as he spoke, his words tumbling out in a rush of regret and explanation. He told me about the pressure from his friends, the way he'd felt trapped, and how he'd lost sight of what really mattered. It was a story of weakness, of mistakes made in a moment of confusion and fear. And as I listened, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a step toward understanding. I realized that while he'd hurt me deeply, he was also hurting, caught in a web of his own making. When he finished, we sat in silence, the weight of his confession hanging between us. I didn't know what to say, how to bridge the gap that had grown between us, but I knew I had to try. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said finally, my voice soft but firm, "but I'm willing to try. For me. Not for us, but because I need to let go of this anger, this hurt." His eyes met mine, filled with a hope I hadn't seen before. "I'll do whatever it takes," he promised, his voice earnest, almost desperate. "I just want to make things right." I nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "Let's take it one day at a time," I suggested, the words feeling like a lifeline, a way to navigate the uncertainty. We talked for a while. Longer, the conversation tentative but honest. It wasn't a resolution, not entirely, but it was a start. And as we parted ways, I felt a sense of peace, a quiet acceptance of the journey ahead. Walking home, I realized that I was finally ready to face whatever came next. The future was uncertain, but it was also full of possibility. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. Back in my apartment, I texted Mia, letting her know how it went. Her reply was immediate, filled with encouragement and love. I smiled, grateful for her unwavering support, for the friendship that had been my anchor through it all. As I settled onto the couch, I felt a sense of closure, a quiet contentment that had been missing for far too long. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I wasn't alone, and that was enough. Tomorrow, I thought, as I drifted off to sleep, tomorrow is a new beginning.